This mailbox may look like your average post, but it's not what you think. Because when Karen rammed into it thinking she'd destroyed again, she shattered her bumper on titanium. It happened on a Thursday morning, just after the garbage trucks passed through. I was sipping my coffee, looking out the front window like I always do, when I saw that same white SUV come creeping up the curb. Karen, same smug expression, same slow veer to the right like she wasn't paying attention, but we both knew better. And then, crack, metal met plastic again. But this time, she didn't bounce off a wooden post. This time, she hit the one thing she never saw coming. A decoy mailbox designed to look exactly like the one she destroyed before. Except this one, it was forged from a recycled titanium drive shaft. Legal, anchored, silent. And when the smoke cleared and she stepped out of her car, staring down at a bumper split in half like a broken promise, all I could do was smile from the porch. She thought she'd won the petty war. She didn't know the real battle had already been engineered. If I didn't find a way to stop her, she was going to keep hitting my mailbox like it was a sport. And if the HOA wouldn't do anything, I'll make sure physics did. It started as a maybe. Maybe she was distracted. Maybe she clipped it turning too sharp. Accidents happen, right? That's what I told myself after the first time, when I walked outside and found my wooden mailbox cracked in half like a dry wishbone, post splintered, the whole thing leaning at a 45-degree angle. No note, no apology, just tire tracks on the curb and a scrape of white paint on the broken wood. I replaced it, dug a new hole, set a new post in concrete, paid out of pocket, brushed it off. Then it happened again. Different day, same damage. Then a third time. That one wasn't subtle. She hit it head on, clean enough to knock the entire thing into the neighbor's lawn. And this time, I caught her driving off, fast, without even looking back. That's when I started to realize this wasn't carelessness. It was targeted. Karen didn't like me. Didn't like how I trimmed my hedges. Didn't like that I refused to sign her pointless petitions about mailbox height consistency or front yard feng shui. So she took it out on the one thing she could hit without a confrontation. My mailbox. Over and over. Each time, it cost me hours. Supplies. Sanity. I filed complaints. Called the HOA. Provided photos. They waved it off every time. It's probably an accident, or there's no proof it was intentional. No proof. She once laughed as she drove past while I was rebuilding it. Smiled like it was a game. Like this was just another little show of dominance from the neighborhood tyrant. I realized something then. If I didn't stop her, she'd just keep escalating. Today it was the mailbox. Tomorrow it'd be my fence. My car. My house. She wasn't just trying to break my property. She was trying to wear me down. Well, she picked the wrong guy to wear out. If the system wouldn't hold her accountable, then the laws of motion would. There's a kind of quiet only a small street can offer. The kind of quiet where the breeze has a personality, where the mailbox creaks just right when you open it, and where the hum of distant lawnmowers means the block is alive and well. I'd built my life around that kind of peace. Not flashy, not loud, just predictable, steady in mine. My house sat on the corner of a curved residential street. One of those old-fashioned loops built back when developers still believed in space between houses. We had trees older than the streetlights, lawns deep enough for kids to run in, and mailboxes that hadn't changed since the 80s. No street parking battles, no daily noise complaints, and no intrusive neighbors poking their heads over the fence to count your garden tools. And for the longest time, that was enough. I moved in about 6 years earlier, after cashing out of a busy city job that never really let me breathe. I wanted peace. Just a simple home, a solid yard, and a neighborhood where the biggest scandal might be someone over-fertilizing their grass. And that's exactly what I found. I kept my lawn trimmed, the hedges square, the porch swept. My mailbox stood straight, black, with a red flag, mounted on a solid wooden post I'd set in concrete myself. I even repainted the house number on the side of it every spring. Nobody bothered me, until she arrived. It started like a thunderclap during a sunny day, unexpected and loud. One morning, I saw the moving truck, then the SUV, then the woman in the oversized sunglasses, barking orders at the movers while sipping iced tea like a suburban general. Designer jogging pants, clip-on nails, purse that probably cost more than my lawnmower. Karen. She moved into the house directly across the street. It had been on the market for a while, vacant, bland, overpriced. She bought it and within a week had 3 landscaping crews working simultaneously, one for rocks, one for turf, and one exclusively planting lavender and yelling at the other 2. Her first impression wasn't just about noise, it was about attitude. She waved like royalty and greeted me with, "So you're the quiet one across the street." As if that was a bad thing. I introduced myself, kept it short. She didn't care. She just launched into a 10-minute speech about how the HOA needed more active voices and how she was thinking about upgrading the tone of the street. Her words. I nodded, made my excuses, and went back inside. It wasn't even a full week before the first hit. I walked out one morning to find my mailbox leaning like a tree in storm. The wooden post had a fresh diagonal crack in it, and the box itself was caved in on one side like someone had given it a solid nudge with a car bumper. No note, no knock at the door, just a scrape of white paint, a deep tire track on the curb, and a busted flag. It could have been anyone, I told myself. Maybe a delivery truck, maybe the garbage crew. I'm not the kind of guy to jump to conclusions. So I patched it up, replaced the post, repainted the number, set it a few inches further from the curb, and told myself it was a fluke. 2 weeks later, it happened again. Same thing. Another clean hit, deeper tire marks, this time with more of the wood sheared off. The box had been torn clean from its post and lay face down in the grass like it had been executed. Still no note. But this time, Karen's white SUV had a small dent on the front right side. I couldn't prove anything. No camera facing the curb. No eyewitnesses. Just a mailbox that kept getting hit and a neighbor with a permanent smirk every time she passed by. That's when I contacted the HOA. Not to escalate, just to document. I figured maybe a warning from them would carry weight. So I emailed them, attached photos, and politely explained that someone had hit my mailbox twice, and I had reason to believe it might have been a new neighbor. I asked if there was a policy for dealing with property damage. Their response? Unfortunately, without direct proof of who caused the damage, this is not an HOA matter. Consider repositioning your mailbox further from the curb. So let me get this straight. I get hit twice, and the suggestion is that I move my mailbox, that I change my habits, that I adjust my space because someone else can't drive in a straight line. It didn't sit right, but I let it go for a while. Then came the third hit, and this time I was home. It was a Wednesday, late morning. I was working on a back patio, replacing some warped deck boards, when I heard the distinct crunch of plastic meeting wood. I rushed to the front yard just in time to see Karen's SUV peeling away, a visible scuff on the front end. And there was my mailbox, on the ground again. I stood there, silent, hands on hips, staring at the destruction. My patience, already thin, snapped like that broken post. I took pictures. Then I bought a cheap trail camera off Amazon, mounted it inside a nearby bush, aimed at the curb, just in case. I rebuilt the mailbox. Again, but now I was watching. 2 weeks later, my patience paid off. There she was, Karen, pulling out of her driveway like a teenager with a learner's permit. She wasn't distracted. She wasn't turning too wide. She veered deliberately toward the curb and gave the mailbox a solid tap with her front bumper before driving off like nothing happened. It wasn't a mistake. It was a message. I downloaded the footage, sent it to the HOA, attached a new report. Their reply? We understand your frustration, but this issue must be resolved between neighbors. As it occurred on public curbside access, the HOA cannot intervene in matters of individual driver behavior. So now, it wasn't their jurisdiction. So now, my mailbox getting wrecked repeatedly by the same smug driver was a personal issue, even though it was happening right out in the open, in front of everyone. That's when it clicked. This wasn't about the mailbox. It was about control. Karen thought she could do whatever she wanted. Clip my mailbox. Leave snarky notes on people's doors. Talk over people at HOA meetings. Because no one had ever pushed back. And the HOA? They were useless. More interested in regulating the shade of your window shutters than protecting actual property. So fine. They wouldn't stop her. I would. Not with threats. Not with shouting. But with something stronger. Unshakable. And silent. By the time I replaced the mailbox a third time, I already knew it wouldn't last. I wasn't doing it out of hope. I was doing it out of habit. Dig the hole, mix the concrete, level the post, bolt the box on top. It had become a routine I never asked for, part of the new normal Karen had forced into my life. She must have seen me out there from her window, because not 15 minutes later, she was driving past again, slowly, real slowly. The kind of crawl you only see when someone wants to make sure you know they're watching. And then she did it. She smirked, didn't wave, didn't stop, just rolled past with that smug, lips curled half smile, like she was already planning the next hit. That was when I knew for sure this wasn't just vandalism. It wasn't even about the mailbox anymore. It was personal. I filed another report with the HOA. I included everything: timestamps, security footage, even a new photo of her dented SUV bumper. My email was clear, professional, and patient, probably too patient. Their reply? Our team has reviewed your concerns. Based on the available footage, the incident appears unintentional. Given the proximity of the mailbox to the curb, we recommend exploring alternative placements or reinforced materials to avoid future accidents. Accidents? Alternative placements? I wasn't asking for sympathy. I was asking for accountability. And all I got was another polite nudge to fold. But it didn't end there. 3 days later, I found a note inside my new mailbox. No envelope, just a folded piece of paper, written in capital letters with the neat fury of someone who alphabetizes their resentment. If you built it stronger, IT wouldn't break so easily. Maybe think about that before you blame other people for your fragile property. No name, no signature, but I didn't need one. The paper smelled like lavender and cheap entitlement. From that point forward, it became psychological warfare. Karen didn't need to hit the mailbox anymore. Just seeing me repair it was enough for her to get her fix. Sometimes she'd park across the street and just watch. Other times she'd walk past with her tiny dog and whisper things under her breath like "still crooked" or "that paint doesn't match." One evening, I caught her taking a picture of it, angled from her porch like she was collecting evidence for a future fine. Sure enough, 2 days later, I got another HOA letter. Aesthetic concern. We've received a report that your mailbox may not conform to approved neighborhood standards. While it is not technically in violation, the board encourages consistency with surrounding properties. Please repaint or replace your mailbox if possible. That was the moment I realized what she was doing. If she couldn't break the box with her bumper, she tried to bury it in bureaucracy. She wanted me to fold, to bend, to disappear. But I don't bend. Not when I'm right. I started doing my own research. I read federal mailbox guidelines, pulled USPS regulations, looked into HOA bylaw loopholes and municipal enforcement zones. I called the postmaster, the city zoning board, and even the Department of Transportation. And what I found was exactly the ammunition I needed. You see, the law says a mailbox must meet certain dimensions, be placed a specific distance from the road, and be able to withstand normal wear. But nowhere does it say what the box must be made of. Steel? Fine. Cement core? Legal. Titanium? No one said a word against it. And as long as it met size, height, and visibility standards, I could put up a mailbox built like a bank vault, and not a soul could stop me. Not Karen. Not the HOA. Not even the mailman, who frankly would probably be thrilled not to see the thing knocked over once a month. So I got to work. The titanium shaft came from a salvaged aircraft parts supplier I found online. It wasn't pretty, it was overkill, but it was hollow, legally sized, and had enough durability to laugh at bumpers. I ordered a stainless steel mailbox shell, identical in appearance to the previous wooden one, and mounted it over the frame. Then I bolted the entire thing to a concrete footing nearly 2 feet deep. On the outside, it looked exactly like every other mailbox on the street. On the inside, it was an anvil in disguise. I even ran a few test hits with a pipe and a sledgehammer. Barely scratched it. She wouldn't see it coming. Sure enough, the bait worked. It only took a week. I was inside when I heard it. An unmistakable crack, followed by a low, guttural crunch, and then a car horn blaring in staccato bursts. I stepped out onto the porch just in time to see Karen's white SUV at a full stop. Her front bumper hanging half off, tilted at a miserable angle. Plastic shards and paint chips littered the curb. She was out of the car, staring at my mailbox like it had betrayed her. Her smirk? Gone. She turned, caught me watching, and for once in her life, had nothing to say. I didn't gloat, didn't wave, just nodded once like the closing move in a very quiet, very patient chess match, and then went back inside. The next day, the HOA sent another letter. This time, different tone. We have received a complaint about an incident involving your mailbox and a resident vehicle. Upon inspection, your mailbox appears to be within legal specifications and structurally compliant with all federal and municipal guidelines. No further action will be taken. Please advise if you require assistance with cleanup or repair. Cleanup? The mailbox was flawless. Her bumper, though? Well, let's just say physics 1 that I didn't want to fight. I just wanted her to stop. But people like Karen don't stop. They escalate when someone thinks they're above the rules. And worse, when the system lets them believe it, they double down every chance they get. And Karen had never been told no. Not by the HOA, not by her neighbors, not by the rules written in plain language and posted on every community board. But I had something she didn't: patience, and a very quiet obsession with the fine print. The night after Karen hit my mailbox for the third time, I stayed up reading. I started with basic mailbox guidelines. You'd be surprised how detailed they are. Height between 41 and 45 inches from the road surface. Distance no greater than 6 to 8 inches from the curb. The post must not be a hazard to vehicles when struck accidentally. That last part? Vague, but interesting. I dug deeper. United States Postal Service Standards. DOT recommendations. County engineering codes. It was like assembling a jigsaw puzzle where every piece had a legal footnote. And the more I read, the more I realized the truth. There were limits to what you could build, sure, but there was also room to build something that didn't break, something that didn't budge, something that wasn't illegal, just indestructible. The loophole was simple. If it's built to code, it's protected. The USPS doesn't regulate material, just dimensions and placement. In fact, they encourage sturdiness to prevent theft and weather damage. Local ordinances didn't even mention what you could or couldn't use. As long as the post could break away safely in the event of a high-speed collision, you were in the clear. But here's the thing about safely breaking away. That only applies if you're speeding. Karen wasn't crashing into it at 40 miles an hour. She was bumping it at 5, purposely, angled, deliberate. And that meant I wasn't obligated to make something soft and forgiving. I was allowed to build something solid. I just had to be smart about it. The plan came together like clockwork. First, I contacted a local salvage yard and asked for a titanium drive shaft from an aircraft. Lightweight, hollow, incredibly strong. They had one, already stripped and legal for repurposing. I picked it up the next morning. Next, I sourced a steel mailbox shell online, identical in shape and color to the ones that kept getting destroyed. A plain black box with a red flag. I didn't want to make it look special. I wanted it to look exactly like the others. Like bait. Then came the base. 2 feet of reinforced concrete poured into a metal-lined sleeve beneath the curb. Invisible once filled, but strong enough to anchor the shaft with zero wiggle. I painted it, weatherproofed it, made sure the post met every visual spec in the HOA rulebook, even the stupid ones. And finally, I mounted a small, concealed HD camera inside the maple tree across the street, just in case. It took 3 days to build, 3 more to settle. Then I waited. It didn't take long. One Friday morning, perfect weather, mail just delivered. I saw her SUV slowly approach. I stood at my front window like I always did, coffee in hand, calm as a coiled spring. She didn't even hesitate. She rolled toward the curb, turned her wheels slightly, and bumped it. Only this time, the mailbox didn't move. But her car? Her car made a sound I'll never forget, like plastic exhaling in defeat. The front bumper cracked down the middle. One side hung low, the grille bowed inward. The headlight popped out of its housing and blinked helplessly, still alive but wounded. She slammed on the brakes, got out, stared at the mailbox like it had insulted her ancestors. I stepped onto the porch. She turned to look at me, and I swear, I've never seen rage mix with confusion so perfectly. "You built a trap," she shouted. I raised my eyebrows. "You hit it." She marched toward me, arms flailing. This is entrapment. You'll pay for the damage. You designed it to destroy my car. No, I said calm as ice. I designed it to not break. You destroyed your own bumper. Big difference. You used metal. That's illegal. Nope. Within code. Within regulation. Within every inch of federal and local guidelines. And I have the specs to prove it. I pointed toward the tree. And video. She paused. For a moment, the fire in her eyes turned to smoke. You'll regret this, she said. Then she stormed off, got into her mangled SUV, and roared away, dragging part of her bumper like a guilty dog with a leash caught underfoot. 2 days later, I got a letter. For her lawyer. Well, allegedly her lawyer. It was poorly formatted, filled with vague legal threats about deliberate obstruction, vehicular risk, and malicious design. They demanded I remove the mailbox, pay for the damage, and cease hostile construction on community property. I scanned it, laughed. Then I sent a reply. Attached were my mailbox's exact dimensions, USPS guidelines, photos of its compliance, a time-stamped construction log, and the full video of Karen deliberately swerving into it. 2 days after that, silence. No more letters. No more smirks. The HOA sent one final message, not to threaten, but to formally acknowledge the matter was closed. Your mailbox has been reviewed and verified as fully compliant with community and municipal regulations. No violations remain on record. The board encourages all neighbors to respect each other's property moving forward. Translation? We know she hid it. We know you beat her. Please don't build a tank next time. I left the mailbox exactly where it was. Didn't even repaint it. It stood tall, unshaken, a monument not to spite, but to patience, to planning, to the power of knowing the rules better than the people who try to use them against you. Karen never tried again. Her car was in the shop for a month. She stopped coming to HOA meetings. Word got around. People started waving to me again. The guy down the street asked if I could build one of those fortresses for his own mailbox. I said sure, so long as they brought their own concrete. And every once in a while, someone walks past and taps the post and smiles. Like it's become a local legend. A quiet victory, etched in steel. Karen never hit my mailbox again. After that morning, the morning her bumper cracked in two and the entire neighborhood got a front row seat to justice, she kept her distance. No more slow rolls past my driveway. No more smug stares or fake notes. In fact, she stopped waving entirely. And for someone who once strutted around like she ran the street, that silence was louder than anything she'd ever said. I never asked for compensation, never sued, never retaliated. But word got out. She had to pay for the repair herself. The insurance company wouldn't touch it, not after they reviewed the footage and read the local code. They classified it as driver fault, with no liability on my part. The mailbox? Flawless. Not even a dent. Karen? Not so much. It wasn't long before the street started talking. Quietly, of course. But I heard it. Neighbors began walking past and lingering just a little longer near the curb. Some tapped the post gently with a knuckle or shoe, testing it, respecting it. One even brought his son over, show him what happens when you pick the wrong battle. A few houses down, an older couple stopped one evening and asked, "Is it true it's made of aircraft metal?" I smiled. Titanium core. Legally compliant. Not even a scratch. They laughed. "You ought to sell the blueprints." Then came the plaque. I didn't plan to install one at first. But after the third person called it the indestructible box, I figured it was time to lean in. I bought a small, brushed aluminum plate, the kind used for garden markers. Discreet. Simple. Mounted right on the front of the post, just beneath the house number. It said, "Respect the box." That was it. 3 words. But said everything. The HOA never contacted me again. Not once. No complaints. No rule changes. No mysterious new guidelines about material consistency or curb uniformity. It was as if they'd learned the one lesson Karen never could. When someone draws a line and reinforces it with law, logic, and 20 pounds of titanium, you don't cross it. You don't argue with it. You respect it. Some neighbors even asked for help building their own. I started calling them quiet fortresses, structures that say, in no uncertain terms, this space is mine, and I know exactly what I'm doing. I didn't charge much, just enough to cover the metal and concrete. Because for me, it wasn't about money. It was about the principle. I never wanted a war. All I wanted was to live in peace. To check my mail without replacing it every other month. To walk to the curb and know that what I built would stand. Not because it was aggressive, but because it was unbreakable. And somewhere along the way, that mailbox stopped being just a fixture. It became a symbol of boundaries that matter, of patience that pays off, of how the right solution isn't always louder, but smarter. So if you're dealing with your own Karen, if someone keeps pushing, keeps poking, keeps testing you like it's a game, if the system refuses to help, and the people in charge shrug off the damage, don't get mad. Get smart. Use the rules better than they do. Build the thing they don't expect, and let them crash headfirst into their own arrogance. Because sometimes the only thing that can stop entitlement is titanium. Moral? If someone keeps crossing the line, don't get mad, get smart. Because titanium doesn't bend to entitlement.